Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I'm Andy Williams.
I'm Emily Horgan, and we're here with Joe, who has a guest. Tell us, Joe.
Thank you. Welcome along. We're delighted to have with us today co-founder and head of interactive at Sawhorse Entertainment. It's Nic Hill. Hi, Nic.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're very pleased that you agreed to come on, it being so early your time. But listen, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, what your career's been today, and then we'll dive into one of my favorite subjects, which is social gaming and Roblox.
Yeah, sounds good. So, my name is Nic Hill. I'm co-founder and head of the interactive department at Sawhorse. And essentially, Sawhorse is a creative agency that tells brand stories. We've been doing that in the form of video for almost 13 years. And during the pandemic, we kind of expanded our capabilities into live streaming and also building 3D immersive worlds on UGC gaming platforms like Roblox. So very similar to sort of telling a brand story and getting a message out there from a marketing standpoint, but now making it in a more interactive and kind of engaging way. In my background, I started as a filmmaker, so it's very traditional film, video work, telling stories, making films. And I also have a background in gaming. So I love playing games. But when I was, coming up with my career, it wasn't very easy to get into making games and publishing those. Like I came up in the sort of the video democratization, the Web 2 revolution of being able to create your own films and distribute them, and I rode that wave. There wasn't that same wave for video games, so I kind of abandoned that side of me. And then, so many years later, after my company was successful and we've had made so much amazing stuff, I was introduced to UGC gaming via Roblox. And then I realized wow, we can actually create a game, publish it, and access massive amounts of people. So it was kind of like an amazing moment for me, an aha moment. And since then, I used to run the post-production side at Sawhorse, all of the editing, graphics, all that stuff. I've left that, and now I'm just all 100% on innovation and, building interactive experiences for our clients.
Amazing. And we've also observed how Roblox has not only taken up an ever greater part of young people's media diet, if you like, but what we've remarked a few times on the podcast is how particularly the film industry is really leveraging UGC platforms, particularly Roblox, which we've often said is fast becoming a standard part of the movie marketing playbook. It'd be great to hear your take, because we've seen it with Kung Fu Panda, we've seen it with Minions. We know that you did the Beetlejuice experience, and that had that really interesting ticket integration with Fandango. So give us a little bit about how you've seen the film industry really leverage it to grow that awareness, and then latterly to push box office.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been exciting to see. At Sawhorse, we work with a lot of different verticals, but I feel like the vertical that's seeing the most success and has the most confidence in UGC gaming platform marketing is the film industry. The major studios are definitely leveraging it, and they're definitely seeing results. What do you want to unpack there?
Yeah, well, it's just, I kind of think it's funny because obviously we know the standards of marketing a film was you have your trailer, you have your poster, and it feels like these days your Roblox experience is part of that, but it's still really, really early on in the kind of the evolution of this. I mean, tell us a bit about, so for people who might not have caught the Beetlejuice experience, tell us a bit about that and how that worked.
Yeah, so the Beetlejuice experience was a Roblox game that we built. We built an afterlife hub. So it was an entire game where users could go on an adventure to unlock keys, and it was all part of the story. And it was leveraging a kind of a horror mechanic game type that's used on the platform. But what was really clever about it was we did integrations. We partnered with really popular games that have a ton of traffic, organic traffic, and concurrent users. And what happened was, in those games, when the players would die, they got a prompt that said, "Do you want to continue your journey in the afterlife?"
Oh, that's so
neat. So many players were like, "What is that?"
That's awesome.
Yeah. and they would click it, and then they would spawn into our afterlife in Beetlejuice. And so players were like, "What is this?" And what's interesting is
That's
there's
great.
so much discovery happening on Roblox. We take it for granted. Like, we all know what Beetlejuice is. We're all of a certain age, but a lot of younger people might not know what Beetlejuice was. They haven't seen the original film, so for them, it was like maybe their first introduction to the IP. And then, in addition to the individual build plus the integrations, we also did traditional sort of programmatic ad, running on the platform. So they were running the trailers and advert trailers for our game across the entire Roblox platform. So it was really a great example of how we kind of used all these different touch points across the entire platform to drive the biggest
I think that's
impact.
so interesting, because that's something that I'm not clear on it so much with Roblox is discovery, right? Like with YouTube, there's kind of a playbook. If you do certain things, you should see some return, and obviously won't always, but there's kind of like, oh, if I post consistently on my channel, and if I make sure there's the same kind of type of content, and I react to viewers' feedback, blah blah blah. So that, not blah blah blah, but it's not that simple. Whereas at Roblox, it's that discovery piece I feel is a little bit unclear, and this sounds like a really good way of unlocking, because that's the thing about a film. A film is a moment. It's not necessarily something that you're doing on an ongoing basis. You kind of need to drive people in that moment to fulfill the objective. So this sounds like a really interesting way of doing that, and in a really like that afterlife thing, in a really organic way that fits with the IP. I mean, were the experiences that were flipping users into the Beetlejuice experience, was that paid integration on their side, or is it just something that they were like, this is cool, like what a cool idea, we're into it? Or am I being too naive?
No, you're not being naive. It really depends on how big the game is. There's a lot of sort of organic community sort of donating and supporting that's happening across the whole platform, which is really inspiring. But some of these games have such massive concurrence, they're massive hits. They understand what value they hold. And so, that was a paid integration. And it was money well spent, because we were able to access their audience of that game and really drive traffic our way.
But also they're that's a really cool, yes, we'll take your money, and obviously we recognize the value, but actually we're happy to offer this to our users too, because we think it's a really cool, fun way of of doing it. It's not just like a real cynical traffic driving basics kind of thing.
And that's one thing I really love, and I'm so passionate about, is it's very organic marketing, and it's very value driven marketing. It's not like, here's my message, go buy my stuff. That really is like, I have an aversion to that. When you can integrate properly a brand into like a gamified experience or any type of place, and you can kind of be in line with the purpose of that game, like, can you integrate and seamlessly become a part of it? And then can you offer value to the users that are actually experiencing? That's the best marketing in the world, in my opinion.
That's interesting. Nic, you said earlier that the film studios were the earliest to kind of adopt Roblox out of the kind of the big brands, or what motivated that, do you think? Why do you think the film studios were earlier than some of the other people that might have kind of adopted Roblox?
Well, I don't know if they were necessarily earlier, but I think I was trying to make the point that I think they feel the most confident leveraging it as a advertising channel, because a lot of the verticals got in and have tested. So the fashion industry, the beauty industry, commerce, sports, everyone's dabbled. But I think, I don't know why this is necessarily, but we're seeing a huge traction for these marketing campaigns for films.
Right.
There's several things. I think, people love IP, especially film IP and, storytelling IP characters.
Yeah.
All films leverage that. So being able to bring that to life and gamify that is very natural. We've been making video games out of movies for a long time, way before UGC gaming. So I think that helps. That's got to be
and theatrical budgets, theatrical marketing budgets are the healthiest budgets in entertainment, I would say, with much jealousy
Yeah.
from the TV side. Like that's something we know, that there's healthy budgets there. They obviously know their bread and butter and their billboarding and their bus splashes and all that kind of stuff. But there is space there to experiment, and then when you're seeing the return, double down and find a way. But it's interesting that it's kind of becoming part of the formula.
Yeah, no, it's definitely working. And one executive from a major studio who I spoke to told me directly. She said, when we're trying to reach younger audiences, if you're looking at films that are G, PG, and PG-13 in that sort of range, it's like it's difficult for them to reach those audiences via TV, right? Because nobody's watching TV, especially young people, and it's very also difficult for them to be reached via social media because they're too young to have a social media account.
Yep.
Like legally. I know a lot of them get their own account their own way, but so they look at platforms like UGC gaming platforms like Roblox because they can actually activate there and market there and sort of connect with those audiences, which is rare.
And in terms of how they connect, I think what the film industry, obviously because of its very nature, what they really embraced about the platform is those innovative ways of connecting. Because it is quite prescriptive. When you've got your trailers and you've got your video content, it's kind of just a question of finding the best place to put them and trying to reach as many of your target audience. But to your point about, when you die in another experience, you're portaled through to Beetlejuice. Actually, those inherent storytellers that are making the movies can actually extend the story into the marketing campaign. And UGC gaming platforms really facilitate that. So I think it's been really interesting to see how that's evolving and helping discovery, to Emily's point. Discovery on any of these platforms, when you've got millions and millions of experiences, can be challenging. So each time you almost need to think more creatively. But I wanted to call out something that I read. I read an article to which you submitted some thoughts on Digiday about Roblox's move into more programmatic ads, because that forms part of that strategy that we were just talking about. Tell us about their new ad tech and what they're rolling out across the platform. That's another lever you can pull to try and increase your discoverability.
Yeah, the way they like to describe it, and I'm in line with this, is it's sort of a pyramid of marketing. Like at the very top, like the lowest lift, that it's easiest, is this programmatic ads, where you can run ads on the platform just like you can run ads anywhere else. So if you don't understand UGC gaming and you really don't want to wrap your head around the complexities there, you can just say, I want to run my trailers or my 30-second TV spot, whatever. I'm going to run it with X amount of spend for X amount of time across X amount of whatever. So there's that, and that's available now to marketers to leverage. And then you sort of keep going down the pyramid to like a larger lift, but bigger impact, like doing an integration into another game and sort of reskinning it for, a couple weeks and getting that traffic. And then all the way down to an owned experience, a persistent owned experience, which is like a game that you design from scratch, you fully own, and then you have to keep updating that from a live ops sort of monthly perspective to kind of galvanize and build your audience and your following, kind of like a social media account. It's almost every brand in the world has a social account and it connects with their audience that way. I think in the future there's going to be, most brands are going to have some sort of, persistent presence on these UGC gaming platforms and connecting with their communities in a persistent fashion.
Yeah, I think, I've seen it forecasted that most brands at some point will ditch a 2D website and have a 3D space. And actually you can see why. It can be such an interesting space, even for an audio brand like JBL. I was in their experience, and for a speaker manufacturer, they've made the concept of sound and audio and listening really interesting. And you leave that experience knowing that they're a brand that really know what they're talking about. So in terms of sports, I wanted to just touch on sports. And it's interesting because I think sports, although there are a few big leagues and mainly North American sports that are active on the platform, They seem to be a follower. Is there any reason why, do you think?
What do you mean by follower? Would you say?
They're not quite as far ahead as the film industry and fashion and music in embracing it and growing the fandoms amongst those younger generations.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I think they're used to the traditional licensing model, where instead of looking at it like a commercial where you'll spend a certain amount to make the commercial and then a certain amount on media, and then you run it and then you get that sort of brand awareness marketing. They're more traditionally have done licensing deals where they will go to a game manufacturer and say, you pay me X amount of money, you can use our sports team in your game, and you can make a lot of money that way. So that's what they've done traditionally, and they've been in gaming for a long time. I mean, I remember on the NES, like Techno Bowl, like the very first
Super
Nintendo
Tennis.
Entertainment System had a football game.
Yeah.
And tennis, yeah. So there's nothing new. And then when they've approached UGC Gaming, I'm not really sure why they're not looking at it like the same as the film industry. I do think that we talked about that parallel between social media, and I haven't seen this very much, and I've been like confused, and I'm not really sure why. But why aren't more sports teams leveraging Roblox and having an always-on presence where they can just kind of amplify their messages and talk about their teams, talk about their successes, and sort of galvanize younger audiences and find ways to drive them to the stadium and to traditional mediums to watch the games and sort of build fandom that way.
Yeah. It's
I've
interesting
met with
because it
several
gives
of
you
them,
a
and it's
presence.
hard to get a yes,
Yeah. And it gives you a presence in the off season, which is similar to what Shrek Swamp Tycoon did as a way to keep a persistent presence in between tentpole releases. Well, hopefully they're kind of catching up.
It sounds like it's solving the exact same problem that you talk about with TV, where like, how do I reach this cohort? And it's that habituality that it's, if you leave them out in the cold, they're just going to find something else to do. So if if younger generations aren't, being kind of coerced to go to the cinema or to go to sporting events, then, that's a real problem for 10 years from now.
Yeah, and it's like discovery, it's like, and also going to where young people are, and making it cool will future-proof.
That's not
these
easy,
brands.
though. That's not easy. It is super difficult to be considered cool by a young person.
That's true. But I think if you work with the right team and you have the right approach, and you can get into these platforms and kind of show up organically, you can be cool. And I think that's one thing I do want to touch on is just community, like straight up. Like, but the difference in marketing on a platform like Roblox is people are opting in to connect with you. So it's not like you're plastering a billboard there and they have no choice to see it, It's when you build this sort of marketing, you have to understand how to talk to this audience, and you have to understand what's important to them, and you have to design things that they actually want to engage in, so they're choosing to join that experience. And then once they're there, you get a much deeper connection. But I would argue that's way more valuable. And I've seen it. I've worked with so many older brands, stuffier brands, and figured out how to put them on Roblox and sort of, see younger generations, discover them for the first time. Like one example was, Elton John.
I was Elton John. Will I ask him to name an old stuffy brand, or I just wait and see? But like, actually, Elton John makes a lot of sense because, like, he is a lovely old Queenie dear. So but it's like trying to.
Yeah.
But
well, I'm a fan.
He's also stayed, I would say, like, movies with his music, like featuring in Sing, featuring in Romeo and Juliet. Like, he has always, and like musicals, like Elton gets it. He knows who he is, but he gets it, I would say.
He totally does get it, and he stays cool. He can partner with younger musicians and continue to make hits. And like you said, those wind up in younger films that, younger audiences see. But I was surprised because when we got that project, we went to our developers who are a bit younger. They work for us. And we said, we got this Elton John project. We're going to make a concert. And they said, I don't know who that is, even though they knew some songs, right? Because they've seen movies and stuff. But we had to give them an education. And it was like a crime. I was shocked. I was like, how can you not know?
You're
That's really,
attending
I
this
don't like that.
webinar or you're
But
fired.
yeah. And but yeah, part of our struggle, our challenge was like, how do we make him relevant to younger audiences? And one thing we did is we partnered with UGC, wearable creators that are on the platform. And then we kind of found ones that knew who he was and respected him and appreciated him. And they created all this amazing clothing inspired by his
style,
all his art and his outfits and everything. And then we created all this media video around it and pushed it out to the entire community. And they were just talking about how they connected with his art and him as a person. And I think a lot of younger Roblox audience saw that, and it was they were like ambassadors to help kind of make him cool or like make him relatable. And then that concert performed really well, and it was a great experience.
He was almost like the OG Avatar with his fashion, wasn't he? In terms of some of the amazing creations that you see digital designers creating on Roblox. He was almost doing that in the 70s IRL, right?
Like I think one of the UGC creators we worked with, they said when we interviewed them, they were saying like it seemed like Elton John was cool before it was cool to be or weird before it was cool to be weird. And he's weird today. And I think Roblox platform itself is very weird. If you look into like the fashion trends and the things that people gravitate toward, like being wacky and different and standing out and like expressing yourself is really key. And he does that. He's done that his entire career. And probably at a time when that was not as nearly as welcomed as it is today.
Yeah. And I think that's I think what you're saying there is really key. And again, I would say it applies to YouTube, TikTok, all other new platforms too. It's like, you need to show up there, like in the way that people are like the established audience is expecting you to, and to really get into it and love it and know it, rather than turn up and just post your trailer. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, that would be the criticism on YouTube. You just post your trailer, you don't post anything else. Or on TikTok, you just post your trailer, you don't post anything else. Like, you need to get in and play and want to get in and play and see the value of getting in and playing. And not just writing it off as like, oh yeah, it's something kids do. No. That's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity because you can actually connect deeply with your community. And that is so much more valuable than just a top-down
100%.
Message that gets implanted in the mind. I think it's more like if you build an immersive experience and you listen to that audience and you connect with them and you offer them value and they spend large amounts of time engaging with that. I mean, you kind of are building a fan for life, in my opinion, if you do that properly.
And who do you see that do it well? Whether it's an experience that you've worked on, you've worked with Walmart, you've worked with beauty brands or others. Who do you see has really done that? Who's really rolled up their sleeves and dived in and thought, right, I'm going to go into this thing. I'm going to learn what they love and why they love it. And I'm going to deliver against that rather than just my style guide and my brand guidelines.
I would say almost all of our clients have had an open-minded approach, which I love. It's very rare that they step up and they say, I don't care about this platform. This is who we are, and this is how we're going to say it. Like, none of the marketing teams I work with have that approach. They have a very open mind. But when it comes to the amount of commitment and really deeply understanding the platform and putting a long-term investment in, I would say the film studios like NBC Universal and Warner Brothers, are all in. They're experts. You can talk to those marketing teams, and they know how all the different touch points and how the community thinks, and they know all of the slang. And I would also give a lot of credit to our Walmart client because they are fully committed to being on the platform and engaging with the community there. They have a persistent experience that we created that engages with fans on a daily basis. And we continue to listen to that audience and kind of mold the purpose of what we're building there and kind of continue to roll that out. a lot of brands don't have that same persistency or that commitment. They don't have maybe the resources on their marketing team to dedicate to a Roblox initiative or a UGC gaming initiative.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of become a consistent feature in that flywheel for movie marketing in a way
Oh
that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
pretty impressive, really. One of the things you mentioned earlier about the difference between social media and like TikTok and Instagram, that they have age restrictions on them. But is it the case that Roblox doesn't have an age restriction on it?
no, they do have an age restriction.
Right.
So if you want to market overtly, the filter is 13 plus.
Okay.
So if you're going to run ads, if
Yep.
you're younger than 13, no one will see those ads.
Right.
But
Okay.
the lines get a little blurred because you can make an experience that's a game that is
Yep.
featuring IP of a well-known character. That doesn't have to be, that may not be viewed as marketing as overtly. And so you don't necessarily have to brand that as 13 plus.
Okay, so kind of the age restrictions apply to the marketing that they see. It doesn't. It's no barrier to them actually being users of the platform.
Yeah, no. Like the users, like very young users can be on the platform, but as
Yep.
far as like what they see, you can sort of start to like siphon off what content at what levels are seen. So one of the lines is like 13 plus. So a lot of the overt marketing is
Yep.
deemed 13 plus. So those users, younger users, when they're playing the platform, they won't see any of that marketing.
Got it. And so, do you need to be mindful about, because Roblox got into some kind of controversy a couple of months ago over user safety? Do you have to have kind of conversations with the brands in terms of how that kind of user moderation works on the platform? Is that kind of part of
Yeah,
that of conversation
we
that you guys have?
Yeah, every brand, needs to make sure that they're activating in a place that's brand safe and that they're not going to have backlash. So we educate the brands on, what protections are in place, what moderation is in place, and protections. And yeah, for the most part, they go along with it and they trust. And knock on wood, we haven't had any problems in any of the experiences that we've built. I think the moderation protections in place that Roblox offers are really strong. I think
Yep.
any UGC gaming platform, you're going to have problems. You open it up to the public to say, come
The
here,
internet is
build
the
and
internet.
share. The
Yep.
first thing someone's going to do is something bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at how big the platform is, like 90 million daily active users almost, I would say it's extremely safe given that volume. You're still going
Great.
to have some toxic things that pop up. They worked on shutting those down as quickly as possible. And I know I just saw on my Alexa this morning talking about how Roblox just rolled out new protections, new parental controls.
Yeah.
So I think I've always been impressed by their safety and civility. And, I know that article came out, about a month ago. And my perspective is that they do a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but I've been impressed personally.
Great. I mean, that's really gratifying to hear.
Yeah, I was just looking whilst we were talking. I was trying to find David Bazuki's post on Twitter because he'd shared about the new features that they just rolled out. And I think he said it was maybe the 100th safety update that they've made this year. So it really does seem like their safety and civility team are working nonstop on improving it consistently, which I think is impressive. And I do think that Hindenburg report was a bit of a hit piece, given that they were also short selling stock, which
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Yeah, they
give
had
them
a
an ulterior
motive
motive.
for sure. Yeah, I think maybe 50% of it was concerning and 50% of it was complete BS.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like we want these environments to be super safe, and we want to be able to like. I have two small kids, and I want them to be safe when they're playing in these environments. But you look at anything with UGC, and horrible things can happen. So
Yeah.
it's just hard. It's the world that we're living in. I mean, look at the stuff that's happened on Meta and live streaming, and all these.
Totally. I mean, in some ways, and kind of not to sort of focus too much on that point, despite kind of what the motive might have been for that piece, kind of if Roblox response is to say, well, we're going to tighten up safety and we're going to look at the user experience, in a way that kind of the motive is a bit irrelevant, really. It's an opportunity for them to then kind of look at improving some of those processes.
But in a
and
way, it's
systems
really
for them.
compelling that they
I like that
are
perspective.
facilitating. Like if they're facilitating, they're openly facilitating kids under the age of 13 being on the platform. Then they have like they're putting not the noose around their own neck, but they're putting that pressure on themselves. Whereas on the flip side, you've got YouTube, who's like, la la la, we're 13 plus platform, do not care, does not matter that you can access from anywhere, da 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 la 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 la. Do you know what I mean? Like that engagement, I see a difference in the engagement tone from Roblox than I've ever seen from YouTube. Much and all as I know YouTube are doing things now, but like there's loads of issues with that. That's not the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. The kind of the age limit thing can be a bit of a way for platforms to wriggle out responsibility. Because I remember when I worked at Nickelodeon, that whole thing where nobody's on the platforms if they're under 13. Obviously, in the real world, that everyone knows that's not the case, but it allowed platforms to sort of shirk responsibility because there was this illusion that younger users weren't on the platform. So yeah, I think kind of you'd much rather have ones that face the fact that you have a younger audience and you moderate and you build the platform to cater to that.
There'll always be issues.
Yeah,
You're on the
that's a great
internet,
point.
right? Like that's people are
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great point. I never really saw it that way. Roblox is at a huge disadvantage. They can't just claim like, oh, we're 13 plus platform, so we don't have to worry about this stuff. They know that young users are the majority of the users there, and they have to own that. I can't think of a lot of like super open UGC platforms that are very young focused. That's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
And when you're first meeting a new client, a brand has come to you, what's the first thing you say to them that IP owners really need to think about when activating on Roblox? What's the number one thing that Nic says to new brand that's just walked in the door?
I think it was, something I mentioned earlier, which is you need to understand the community. This isn't traditional marketing where you have control and you want to say, look, I'm just going to throw this thing out there and people are going to consume it. And that's my message. If you want to be successful, you have to understand who that audience is. You have to educate yourself. And then you have to be creative in ways that you are activating there. And I think that's a lot to ask most marketing teams. Some of them are like, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. I got to run, this campaign across all these touch points. Like, what is this? So we try to make it easy for them, but we try to explain that, just traditional thinking may not work here. So, come with us on this ride, get some education, take some advice and some guidance, and we'll help integrate you and make this successful for you here.
Does the spend tend to come more from marketing teams or innovation teams?
Traditionally, it's been innovation teams because in a lot of these verticals, it's so new and they haven't proved out the value quite yet, and they're having a hard time sort of benchmarking it to other forms of marketing, right? So I think right now we're in a phase where most companies that know what's up realize the they realize that Roblox is very important. The fact that it has almost 90 million daily active users, Gen Z, you can't ignore it. But I don't think the ad products are quite mature enough, and the reporting is not strong enough for all of these CMOs and marketing teams to say, oh, of course, I'm going to put X in here on Roblox, X on broadcast, X on Instagram, because this is what I'm getting out. We're still in those early days. So I think a lot of people are like in that experimental phase where they're like, we're going to tap these innovation budgets. We're going to do these activations. We'll do 1 a year, 2 a year, and we're going to keep our finger on the pulse, but not going all in. Versus like you look at the film industry, all of those teams, those studios are just saying, great, this is all marketing. Forget about innovation. Yeah. It's like this amount is going straight to Roblox. This amount is going straight to social. straight to broadcast. Like this is what we have to do every cycle, which has been exciting to kind of see that. And I anticipate all verticals following in the next like 5-10 years.
Yeah, I agree.
What's your view on mining Roblox? So going the opposite way, not being marketing, but finding IP on Roblox and being able to push it off? Because obviously you're a filmmaker by origin, right? Like, so like how do you see, have you seen good examples of that? Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the best example of that is coming soon, which is Skibbity Toilet. I hate having to admit that, but it's true. Is a cultural phenomenon, and there's a film being produced, a major Hollywood film based on that IP. So that's one example of like something coming from that side outward. I haven't seen a lot of successful projects come out like about the main Roblox IP, like around Piggy or Adopt Me or some of these things. I know there's been like a lot of toy lines that have come out.
Yeah.
But
Adopt Me and I think Pet Sim, they've been on McDonald's Happy Meals, haven't they? So they've made the hop over onto
the real world,
into the pop culture that is a McDonald's Happy Meal.
Yeah.
And flipping that on its head, are there any brands that aren't really on Roblox? Do you think they would be the perfect brands to be on Roblox?
That's a good question. I think most fashion brands will see success. I think it just only makes sense, right? When you're younger and you're experimenting and you're exploring, if you just discover brands in your gaming space and you become aware of them, and then in the real world, you walk down the street and you see that same logo and you're like, I know them. Maybe I'll buy that jacket, So I think that there's a lot of opportunities there. I'm trying to, I don't really think in that way. Like I'm sort of reactionary. There's a lot of brands coming in, so I'm trying to field them. But I don't know if I have a list of like top brands that I think need to be in here or should be in here. I sort of take an open-minded perspective. I look at it like Instagram, like what brand should be on Instagram. All of them, right? Who want to reach their audiences.
And tell us a little bit about Zepeto. We've focused mainly on Roblox, but Zepeto is a platform that has a good couple of 100 million regular users, comes out of South Korea, but it's popping up on my radar and mainly proliferated by the luxury fashion brands, but they tend to be first movers in these kind of spaces. And then you get the film industry following on. And so tell us a little bit about Zepeto. What is it and why is it interesting as a UGC platform like Roblox?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a growing up and coming platform. It's significantly smaller in user base size compared to a Roblox, but it is still very significant and growing. It's a heavily fashion forward UGC gaming platform. So a lot of fashion brands leverage it. A lot of the games are around fashion. It also has a social media component built into the game itself, which I think is really interesting. So a lot of users will dress their avatars up. They'll meet up with friends. They'll dress up together and they'll create little videos. And then those videos go into a feed. And then you can follow people. There's a lot of content being created and then shared, not only in the platform, but also off platform on like social media platforms. And people are seeing that. And I think that's fascinating. And we've done some focus groups talking to like Zepeto users. And a lot of them will experiment with physical, like clothing looks on the platform, and then that will inspire the way they dress in the real world. So it's like a test there first and share. And so I think it definitely has a very predominant and like unique fashion. It's like the fashion place you go in UGC if you really want to push that. And that team's been amazing to work with. We just worked with Walmart to bring the No Boundaries clothing brand to that platform. And we've had our first launch, and we have another one coming very soon. So that's been a really fun UGC platform to work on.
And commerce is integrated to it. So if you try on those that clothing range, then you can purchase it, presumably?
Not at scale. They have done that in the past, but most likely that's sort of the direction it's moving in.
Amazing.
And you were saying earlier, sorry, Joe, go for it.
Go ahead, Andy.
I was just interested when you were talking about the importance of brands to really kind of engage with communities on Roblox. Can you think of an example of how kind of a big, maybe film brand, how does that manifest itself in practice? Kind of, what does that mean in terms of a brand listening to that community? I mean, is it about changing the game, or how can they be responsive to that community?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we'll do oftentimes is we'll create a Discord server, and that Discord server is connected directly to the game. And so, especially for these persistent experiences, a brand can build an experience for those users and then have that dialogue happening on Discord. And then we kind of react to what they're saying, and then we can kind of build updates to that game, or certain types of UGC wearables that they want to see, or certain types of even like IRL activations or sort of discounts or whatever. You kind of have that dialogue back and forth. You can listen to that community and grow with them, which is super valuable. I know there's a certain amount of that happening on social channels with to be able to comment and go back and forth, but you can really go deep in a 3D immersive experience if you're tweaking that and changing that based on what the community wants.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's great. Thank you.
So before we wrap up, we like to ask our guests about past, present and future. So what TV or video games or movies did you love when you were a kid? And you, might still love too. But yeah, one from the past, one of the current, and what are you looking forward to that's coming down the track?
Yeah, sure. There's I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of like so many things. I've consumed so much content and entertainment in my life, and it's interesting because I watched a lot of TV when I was a kid. I'm trying to like limit our screen time for our kids, but my parents kind of allowed me to like really kind of just sit in front of that TV, and I actually think it was a big benefit to me as turning into a filmmaker and like building a media company. I'm kind of glad I did that. Glad I watched a lot of TV. Glad I played a lot of video games. It didn't make me introverted. I don't know. I do have dry eye, and I've had to like get my way through that. But other than that, I think it's been fine. But yeah, stuff that I really gravitated toward from the video game front, I was really into the Final Fantasy series. So the role playing games. Also, like later on, I was really into Call of Duty. And then today, obviously, when I got older, I had less time to play video games. And, now I'm a father of 2 kids and don't have a lot of time. But what I do play is Marvel Snap on my phone, which is like
so much fun.
The most awesome card game that's out. It's just so fantastic. And then as far as movies, what made major impact on me when I was young was a film called Akira. It's a Japanese animation.
Yeah.
That was kind of life-changing for me. It was so progressive for its time and kind of really inspired me creatively. And also, I've really loved the Alien franchise, across the board. Just fantastic filmmaking. And then today, I like a lot of things. I just watched the Dune series recently, the films, and the TV show just came out, so I just watched the first episode last night. Thought that was awesome. And then I think moving forward, what I'm most excited about right now is transmedia. Just straight up. Like I think we haven't really seen that come to life at the level that we want it to yet. Like a movie we can play, or a film we can, a game we can, how do I always mess it up when I'm trying to say this, a game we can watch or a film we can play. Right. So it's like, where do those lines blur? We were able to do a little test with this when we did the immersive watch party for Stranger Things on Roblox, where we gamified that episode and we kind of changed the environments based on what scene was happening. It was a little bit like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where, certain things were happening and the audience was super engaged and reacting based on what was happening. I'm just super passionate about where this is going, where you can leverage interactive technology and filmmaking to blur the lines of how that media is being consumed. I hope to be involved in that over the next 10 years.
Yeah, great.
That's super cool. Yeah, very exciting. We've had Jeff Gomez on the podcast previously, who's one of the OGs of kind of transmedia storytelling, and worked with James Cameron on Avatar. And it's just, the thought of being able to, either as an active or a passive observer, be in amongst a movie, your favorite movies, replaying scenes within Roblox of Jaws or Back to the Future. I mean, that kind of thing gets me really excited. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's hope that we get a chance to play in that space before we get too old.
We will. We will be there. It's a great time to be alive.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you. And we, Andy, do you want to do the wrap up? You're best at this.
So thanks very much, Nick, for a great discussion on Roblox, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Please leave us a review or give us a rating. It's always appreciated. Sorry, follow us on TikTok. Very helpful reminder there from Emily. And tune in next week. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just stay on for a minute.